So I woke up this morning and was immediately inundated with Mother's Day posts and things. Mother's Day is probably the most painful day of the year for me. It's more painful than any of my trauma anniversaries or anything else because as someone who has had two miscarriages and who is all but estranged from her mother because I have chosen not to be the strict fundamentalist evangelical that she is and thinks that everyone should be. I just don't really have a relationship with her anymore. I'm not no contact with her, but I'm minimal contact, and she chooses not to contact me very often. Um, I think it's probably been over 5 years since she asked me anything about my life. Um, and So it's a really painful day for me, and that really plays into what I want to talk about today. I have recorded 3 separate episodes and tried to upload them, and I just knew they weren't the right thing. They weren't right. They weren't the right topic to put out there. And so I have recorded them, saved them, uploaded them, deleted them. I still have the recordings. But that's why the gap in recordings, because I thought I had the right topic and I knew it wasn't the right one. Because the thing that I was talking about, that I recorded 3 episodes talking about it, was healing and the process of healing and a specific wound that I was healing. And I was talking about it as it was open. And today's episode is really just about the fact that healing is not linear. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. I am in some deep shadow work right now that is so painful and uncomfortable and covers so many different aspects of trauma that I have dealt with over my lifetime. And it's just like every day is a new insight and a new, oh, that's why that hurts, kind of moment. And that's really great and also really painful at the same time and really difficult to navigate. And one of the things that I keep thinking about is how so much of what I've been dealing with has just as 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 uh, as a person with autism is just really chafing to me because I'm like, this is illogical. And a thing that's really hard to accept is that logic doesn't govern emotions. Um, and trying to think your way out of a feeling is counterproductive, which is why somatic work is so effective for healing emotional wounds and healing past traumas because it's a very old book at this point. Well, very is probably an exaggeration. The body keeps the score. The body stores the trauma. Even if our conscious mind doesn't remember the trauma, even if we cognitively can't speak about the trauma or understand what happened, our body knows, our body reacts, our body stores it as a pattern to recognize later. And trying to just like make sense of it and think about it and talk about it in logical terms is a really counterproductive way to try to heal trauma. And it is my default way to try to deal with and heal trauma because I'm a very analytical and logical person. And all I do is I look and I go, well, this doesn't make sense. I don't know why I feel like that. And a long time ago, when I was still going to church, someone told me that feelings aren't supposed to make sense. They're not supposed to be logical. They're feelings. That's the very nature of them. And my fucking Spock brain was like, does not compute. Um, but she was very right. And one of the things that has been really difficult for me in healing so many of the different traumas that I've been through is that I look at something and go, this is not logical. The danger is past. I should be fine now. Um, or this has been talked out and resolved. I should be fine now. And trying to force yourself into healing and forgiveness doesn't work. It just doesn't. You can say all you want to, well, we talked it out, we fought it out, and I'm fine now. I got closure and I'm fine now. I know I'll never get closure, and I've accepted that and I'm fine now. But not being fine, the thing is, you'll be over it when you're ready. And that is a really hard thing for me to accept because there's so many situations that I've been through where I feel like I've talked it to death with my, therapist or friends or partner or all of the above or the person who hurt me, and I'm still not over it. Like we've talked it to death and I'm still not over it. And I'm like, there's something else under this. There's something else under it. And more often than not, the something else that's under it is me just being able to acknowledge that it hurt and to feel that and to sit with that and to hold space for that and to process through that. And often to move through that, which I'm very bad at doing. I can sit with things way easier than I can move through things. And we need to understand that as we're healing wounds, as we're healing traumas, that we have to be gentle with ourselves. One of the great things for me being a nurse, especially a nurse who worked with trauma patients and who did a lot of wound care in my career, is seeing the parallel between emotional healing and physical healing. And sometimes trauma needs a surgical intervention. You got to do something right away or you're never going to heal right. But those are the really, really extreme traumas. Most often, when you've got, a skin tear or an abrasion or a bruise or just some really sore muscles, what you need is gentleness and care. You need to drink a lot of water. You need to rest, but not be completely immobile. You need hot baths with Epsom salts. You need gentle massages. You need time and to be gentle with yourself. You need really nutritious foods. And that is just as much true for emotional healing as it is for physical healing. And I feel like so often, at least I know for myself I do, we're the bully in our own head. We're the one that's saying, suck it up, get over it. Why are you not over this yet? Why is this still a problem for you? Why is this still a problem for you? Why the fuck is this still a problem for you? Why are you still hung up on this? It's over. It was over years ago. Why is this still bothering you? And as valid as all of that might be logically, emotionally, it is absolute, utter bullshit. We have to be able, if we're going to heal ourselves and heal our trauma, we have to be able to take a step back and say, this is an emotional thing, not a logical thing. This is something I'm feeling, not something I'm thinking about. And when we get hung up on these kind of hamster wheel kind of things and just running over the same thing over and over in our brain and having these imaginary arguments and whatever, we have to recognize that is our brain trying to heal us. It is a cognitive problem because it's an emotional problem. And our brain is like, well, if she's not going to do anything, I'll try. And our brain does the only thing that it knows to do. Think about it. Because the brain isn't the thing that moves. The brain isn't even the thing that sits with it. All the brain can do is think about it. And so it says, well, this is definitely a problem, so I'm just going to keep turning it over and over and over and thinking about it. Maybe we'll get somewhere with that. I've had multiple problems over the years that I was so hung up on cognitively that I couldn't really get to the emotional depth of it. That lasted for months and months and sometimes years. And the thing that I have learned and am learning is that when you have a problem that you just can't seem to shake, that maybe isn't really a problem anymore. It's not like your coworker is bullying you kind of problem. It's like that person was mean to me a few years ago and I'm still hung up on it type problem. We have to be gentle. We have to be so gentle and we have to be so non judgmental to ourselves. We have to stop being the bully in our own heads, saying, you should get over this. You should be over this. I don't understand why you're talking about this still. I don't understand why this is still a problem. I don't understand why we're at the same place again. Again. We always end up at the same place. Why are you not over this? You have to get that out of your own head and say, this is a problem for a reason. I'm hung up on this for a reason. There is something that I need to learn here, or there is something that I need to heal here, or both, or maybe multiple somethings that I need to learn or heal. And every time that I've had a situation like this that I just could not shake, it became obsessive for me. There was always multiple layers to it. And as a healing person, and I don't mean that to say that I'm a healer, though I have been described that by many people, I am saying that as someone who is healing myself. I am not healed, I am healing. And continuing to do so and continuing to work on that. Some of the things that I have found that have worked for me and work for me as I deal with these really big, seemingly just overwhelming, impossible to heal type traumas or wounds is the very first thing is to get curious. Just really look at it, like try to see it from an outside perspective. Talk to some of your friends or a therapist and get like an outside perspective of like what is really going on here? Are you really so upset about the exact situation that happened? Or is there something deeper? Because sometimes it's a repeated pattern, or sometimes it is a trigger for a hello. My cat Beatrix, who always has to be in the room with me when I record podcasts, just jumped up on my stomach and it scared me. Hello, baby. What was I saying? You distracted me. Yes, you're very cute. I'm posting a picture of her on my social media for this episode since she has featured so highly in it and been so disruptive. Um, and now she's just purring. You need to get curious. I'm trying to find my way back to where I was. Um, you need to figure out what the underneath is. Kind of that, like, look at, is this triggering something in me? Is this a pattern recognition problem? Is this person, reminding me of someone else who hurt me in the past? And even though what they did might not be that big, there's this unhealed wound from this other person. Just get really curious about what it is that's causing you the pain. Um, and as much as you're able to, and it's very difficult to do, I'm not saying that like it's an easy thing to do, but as much as you're able to, do so in a very non judgmental and kind of detached way. Like, look at it like you're trying to find it from an outside perspective and call in those outside perspectives if you need to. Because the biggest thing is to just ask why. Why is this bothering me so much? Why am I hung up on this? And not in a way of just like, why is this a problem for you? Why are you still hung up on this? Just why? What is it about this that is causing me so much pain? What is it about this that I can't let go of? Um, I have a friend who does a lot of like shamanic healing kind of work. And one thing that she asks a lot about really painful things or really bad thought patterns or judgments or things like that is just like, how is this serving me? Because maybe it is. Maybe you're really hung up on this because it's a protective mechanism. Like it's a trauma that is triggering something in you that needs feels the need to be protected. Um, I've definitely experienced this a lot in the workplace with workplace bullies and inadequate management and things like that, where I have a disproportionate reaction to what is happening because it triggers a lot of my childhood trauma of not being protected and not being safe. And so asking why, and then kind of a caveat or branching off of that is just like, look for what's underneath. Like, is this really about the situation or is there something under it? Is this, again, like, is this a pattern recognition? Is this a trigger? Is there something deeper here? Is this like a wound that I haven't healed from something else that's just being dug into, that's being reopened by this specific problem? And checking for patterns. Um, a lot of times in life, patterns keep showing up until we figure out the pattern. I see, it's kind of like on social media, these like little kitschy quotes or whatever, like something is going to show up in your life until you heal what's needed to heal. Like sometimes we see these patterns and these patterns keep showing up over and over and over again until we heal what needs to be healed, until we learn the lesson that needed to be learned. Um, and the pattern's just gonna keep showing up until we do what we're supposed to do with that pattern. Um, and honestly, and this is the biggest tip that I have, the most important one to me is that to recognize that some hurts are onions. A few years ago, I had a situation where I was just really hung up on this problem, and it took me 18 months to get over it. And in the 18 months along the way, I say epiphanies. I maybe use that a little too flippantly, but it's a word that works for me for what I feel and what I mean. I would have just these epiphanies like almost monthly. Just, oh, this is why this is a problem. And oh, this is what it is. And oh, this is what I'm supposed to learn. And that went on for 18 months until the situation finally resolved when and it was such an anticlimactic resolution to the problem, but when it finally resolved and it was over, I just realized that I needed every bit of those 18 months and everything that I realized along the way. The final revelation, when I finally was able to let go, was not the point. It wasn't the whole point. It wasn't the grand climax. It was everything that led up to it was what I needed. That final cherry on top was just the cherry. It wasn't the whole sundae. And the sundae was the point. And sometimes you have hurts that won't let go of you because you need to make multiple realizations. You need to learn multiple things. You need to heal multiple things. And that's okay. We have such an unrealistic expectation of healing in our society, both emotional and physical. We think that we should just snap back from everything. We talk about minor surgeries and outpatient surgeries, like cutting into the human body is just a minor thing, and you should be able to just be fine the next day or the next week. It is a ridiculous expectation. We we need to be more gentle, both with ourselves and each other, when it comes to healing. And recognizing that sometimes things just take time. Like, if you have a really deep wound, it's going to take a long time to heal. Doesn't matter how great your wound care is, or how great your nutrition is, or your support system, or the help that you're getting, or anything else. Sometimes things just take a long time to heal. And the same is true with emotional healing. If you have a really deep wound, especially if it's a deep wound that is on top of another deep wound that you had in the past, it's going to take it a long time to heal. And yes, sometimes years, and people don't like that. And there's a lot of, social media healer bullshit, quite frankly, that says, "Oh, you'll be fine in 6 months or whatever if you just do this." I've done a lot of those courses, and I find them super helpful. And I still recognize that sometimes things take a long time to heal. Sometimes you can't just go, "Oh, I forgive them," and move on. And we kind of fetishize forgiveness. Um, to a large degree, especially in the religious community and especially in the spiritual community. You have to forgive them before you can move on and before you can heal. While forgiveness can be a huge part of healing, to make it as the goal or the catalyst is really harmful. And I hate hearing it, because to tell someone they have to forgive their abuser or whatever, or that they're not healed until they can forgive, is to set an unrealistic goal for them. Because if their goal is just to be able to forgive, then they're not focused on healing, they're focused on forgiving, and they're focused on the other person. I have naturally come to forgiveness for my abusers when I was not focused on trying to forgive them. If that has been my focus in any of the spaces that I've worked in, I have not been able to get there. We've got to stop fetishizing forgiveness and making it a condition of healing. We are hurting people with this. And I wish it was less talked about. Forgiveness is a byproduct of healing. It is not a step toward healing. And if you are struggling with a pain and struggling to forgive someone who hurt you or abused you or whatever, please know that there is nothing wrong with you and that forgiveness is not a step toward healing. It is what comes when you are healed. I have spent the last several weeks feeling like a 13-year-old me was walking beside me, both in judgment and in awe, because I have done so many things that she would be so proud of and so happy to see that I did. I I drove to Chicago by myself. It was like a 10.5 hour drive in my dream car. And went to this convention that I was really nervous to go to, just because I've I've sort of done similar things, but nothing really like this or on this level. And I knew there were people who were going to be there who knew the person who has been such a big problem for me. And it's one of those, it's not even really a problem anymore. It's like a past problem. The drama's past, but I'm not over it kind of situations where she's not bothering me anymore, but she bothered me so much when she bothered me and spread the drama so far that I'm still feeling the effects of it. Which is, I mean, that's what bullying is. That's what abuse is. It's one of those things that it's never just a one and done situation. Just like, oh, I did this and now you can get over it because it was just a one time thing. It's a thing that creates a pattern that creates a ripple effect. And so I knew there were going to be people at this convention who knew this person, and I was really scared and intimidated because the thing that she did made me feel like I had no place in this community. And I went there and I found out that the opposite was true. Her name never even came up, um, even in places that it naturally probably would have if she actually was as important in this community as she tried to pretend like she was. And being able to just be there and be myself and be as appreciated as I was, that was absolutely wild to me. I did not realize how many people like followed my posts in the community or recognized me. I got a whole lot of free stuff and a lot of discounted stuff just because people knew me and people wanted to do something nice for me, and that was really weird. I got called an influencer, and that was a very triggering word, which I did not expect because it has such a negative connotation. And people kept calling me an influencer, and I was like, I don't like that. And I was like, why don't you like that? And that's something that I'm still sitting with. But to be able to be in a space that I didn't feel like I had a right to be in, and that I felt like I was just introduced into because of my husband, even though that wasn't accurate and I knew it wasn't accurate. And to be in this space that I felt like I had been made out to be a copycat of this other woman, even though I knew that wasn't true. And to see that no one saw me as my husband's sidekick or a copycat of this other woman, and that I was just my own person, was very healing and validating to see that some of this kind of hamster wheel trauma bullshit that I've been dealing with wasn't even true at all. And people have been telling me it wasn't true. And I didn't believe them. And then I saw for myself that it wasn't true. And that led to this episode because it didn't matter how many people told me that I had a valid space where I was at, that I had a right to be where I was at, that no one saw me as a copycat, that no one saw me as just an extension of my husband. I didn't believe any of it. And then I saw it for myself. And that goes back to the whole point, which is that you'll be over it when you're ready. It doesn't matter how much you think you should be over it, or how much you hear other people giving you valid arguments or valid reasons for letting it go, or why it shouldn't matter, or why you should be over it. Sometimes you need to see things for yourself. Sometimes you need to come to things on your own. And sometimes it just takes time, and you will be over whatever it is that you need to be over when you're ready to be over it. And just like the situation from several years ago that took me 18 months to get over, when I was finally over it, I felt silly. I said, how did I stay hung up on this for 18 months? This is ridiculous. This was a nothing situation. But I learned so much about myself in the process, and I healed so many other things in the process. And so I say this because when we judge our healing and we judge how long it's taking, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to get curious. Because maybe it's not about healing that one thing. Maybe that thing is just the lantern lighting the way through the tunnel so you can heal the other things that have been so difficult to heal. And that's why it feels so intense. It's not about that one thing, it's about everything that lies underneath it. I truly hope that this episode has been helpful for you today, that you've learned something about yourself or the world, that you can take this and use it. And I hope you'll join me next week, and it will be next week, I promise, on the podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress.